Dragon Age Origins was rated M for mature by the ESRB and contains blood, intense violence, language, partial nudity, and sexual content. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, my name is Amaronith and I play games for the internet, and today I'm reading some Codex Entries. I'm gonna read some of what we picked up for, like in creatures and in magic and religion and culture and history and characters and books and songs. I'm not going to read the Codex entries for the controls. Because this is more for this is more for the lore dump than it is for tactics and such and whatnot. So what we currently have are 6 items to be read in creatures, 4 in magic and religion, 11 in culture and history, 4 in characters, and 1 in book and songs. The 2 in notes are just the credits for the feast day stuff. So, now that we've covered that, let's start with creatures. Also, heads up, I'm probably going to mispronounce a lot of things. I really apologize for that. Archdemon. Actually, yeah. Item 3. The Archdemon. In darkness eternal they searched for those who had goaded them on, until at last they found their prize, their god, their betrayer, the sleeping dragon Dumat, their taint, twisted even the false god, and the whisperer awoke at last in pain and horror, and led them to wreak havoc upon all the nations of the world. The first Blight. Threnades 8-7. The false dragon gods of the Tevinter Imperium lie buried deep within the earth, where they have been imprisoned since the Maker cast them down. No one knows what it is that drives the Darkspawn in their relentless search for the sleeping old gods. Perhaps it is instinct, as moths will fly into torch flames. Perhaps there is some remnant of desire for vengeance upon the ones who goaded the Magisters to assault heaven. Whatever the reason, when Darkspawn find one of these ancient dragons, it is immediately afflicted by the taint. It awakens, twisted and corrupted, and leads the Darkspawn in a full-scale invasion of the land. A Blight. Item 12. Genlock. These are the most common Darkspawn in the underground. Stocky and tough, Genlocks are notoriously difficult to kill, even by magic. Alphas. In any group of Genlocks, there is usually one who is dominant. As the tallest, strongest, and smartest of their kind, Alphas serve as a sort of commander, directing or bullying the others in combat. Emissaries. The most intelligent of the Alphas become gifted sorcerers, with many abilities akin to blood magic. These are the emissaries, and they usually only appear during a Blight. Item 15. Halla. No creature is more revered by the Dalish than the Halla. No other animal has a god of its own. These white stags are much larger than ordinary deer, and the Dalish Halla keepers carve their antlers as they grow, making them curve into intricate designs. In ancient times, these stags bore elven knights into combat, but since the fall of the Dales, they are used less as mounts and more to pull the Aravels. Item 17. Mabari War Hound. Dogs are an essential part of Ferelden culture, and no dog is more prized than the Mabari. The breed is as old as myth, said to have been bred from the wolves who served Dane. Prized for their intelligence and loyalty, these dogs are more than mere weapons or status symbols. The hounds choose their masters and pair them with them for life. To be the master of a Mabari anywhere in Ferelden is to be recognized instantly as a person of worth. The Mabari are an essential part of Ferelden military strategy. Trained hounds can easily pull knights from horseback or break lines of pikemen, and the sight and sound of a wave of war dogs howling and snarling has been known to cause panic among even the most hardened infantry soldiers. Item 28. Giant Spider. Giant spiders tend to appear in old ruins and other places where the veil has become thin because of magical disturbances or a great number of deaths. In such places, spirits and demons pass into the world of the living and attempt to take control over living beings, spiders among them. Not all scholars accept this explanation for the presence of these beasts, however. Some claim that the thinning veil allows magic to leak from the Fade, tainting such creatures as these spiders to transform into larger and more potent creatures than they ever would have become naturally. While such spiders are known to possess powerful poisons and the ability to fling their webs at opponents in combat, studies of them have been few, and the full range of their abilities are unknown. And finally, in creatures, Item 32. Wolf. It is rather unfair, the reputation that the wolf possesses in Ferelden. For a people that so clearly adore their hounds, Fereldans simultaneously harbor a distrust of wolves that borders on the unreasonable. Unreasonable, that is, if one were not familiar with the ancient legends regarding werewolves. There was a time in Ferelden's past when demons inhabited the bodies of wolves in great numbers, causing the wars against the werewolves and spread great fear and panic. The werewolves were slain, but even today the noble wolf is still looked upon with distrust. From Legends of Ferelden, by Mother Alis of Denerim, 910 Dragon. An attack by wolves upon civilized folk happens rarely, often only in times of desperation, and even then only when the wolves have the advantage of numbers. This can change during a blight. When darkspawn rise onto the surface, their presence dramatically alters the savage nature of normal beasts. In Blight's past, as the corruption of the darkspawn spread through the wilder areas of Thedas, it would infect the animals found there, and the more powerful of them would survive and be transformed into a more vicious and dangerous beast. A blight wolf is one such example, mad with the pain of its infection, and only through the overriding command of the darkspawn does it still retain some semblance of its pack instincts. Blight wolves are always found in large groups and will tend to overwhelm a single target if they can, using their numbers to their advantage. It is fortunate that these creatures rarely survive their corruption for very long. Magic and Religion, Item 57. Ghilan'nain, Mother of the Halla. They say Ghilan'nain was one of the people in the days before Arlathan, and the chosen of Andril, the huntress. She was very beautiful, with hair of snowy white, and as graceful as a gazelle. She kept always to Andril's ways, and Andril favored her above all others. One day, while hunting in the forest, Ghilan'nain came across a hunter she did not know. At his feet lay a hawk, shot through the heart by an arrow. Ghilan'nain was filled with rage, for the hawk, along with the hare, is an animal much beloved of Andril. Ghilan'nain demanded that the hunter make an offering to Andril in exchange for taking the life of one of her creatures. The hunter refused, and Ghilan'nain called upon the goddess to curse him so that he could never again hunt and kill a living creature. Ghilan'nain's curse took hold, and the hunter found that he was unable to hunt. His prey would dart out of sight, and his arrows would fly astray. His friends and family began to mock him for his impotence, for what use is a hunter who cannot hunt? Ashamed, the hunter swore he would find Ghilan'nain and repay her for what she had done to him. He found Ghilan'nain while she was out on a hunt with her sisters, and lured her away from them with lies and false words. He told Ghilan'nain that he had learned his lesson and begged her to come with him so she could teach him how to make a proper offering to Andruil. Moved by his plea, Ghilan'nain followed the hunter, and when they were away from all of her sisters, the hunter turned on Ghilan'nain. He blinded her first, and then bound her as one would bind a fresh kill from the hunt. But because he was cursed, the hunter could not kill her. Instead, he left her for dead in the forest. And Ghilan'nain prayed to the gods for help. She prayed to Elgar'nan for vengeance, to Mother Mythal to protect her, but above all she prayed to Andruil. Andruil sent her hares to Ghilan'nain, and they chewed through the ropes that bound her, but Ghilan'nain was still wounded and blind, and could not find her way home. So Andruil turned her into a beautiful white deer, the first Halla, and Ghilan'nain found her way back to her sisters, and led them to the hunter, who was brought to justice. And since that day, the Halla have guided the people, and have never led us astray, for they listen to the voice of Ghilan'nain. From the tale of Ghilan'nain, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Arlathan clan of the Dalish Elves. Item 66. The Chant of Light. The Blight. Actually, give me a second. I'm going to take a drink of water first. Ooh. Pardon me. The Chant of Light. The Blight. No matter their power, their triumphs, the mage lords of Tevinter were men, and doomed to die. Then a voice whispered within their hearts, "Shall you surrender your power to time like the beasts of the fields? You are the lords of the earth! Go forth to claim the empty throne of heaven and be gods!" In secret they worked, magic upon magic, all their power and all their vanity they turned against the veil, until at last it gave way. Above them, a river of light, before them the throne of heaven, waiting, beneath their feet the footprints of the Maker, and all around them echoed a vast silence. But when they took a single step toward the empty throne, a great voice cried out, shaking the very foundations of heaven and earth, "And so it is the golden city blackened with each step you take in my hall. Marvel at perfection, for it is fleeting. You have brought sin to heaven and doom upon all the world." Violently they were cast down, for no mortal may walk bodily in the realms of dreams. Bearing the mark of their crime, bodies so maimed and distorted that none shall see them and know them for men. Deep into the earth they fled, away from the light, in darkness eternal they searched for those who had goaded them on, until at last they found their prize, their god, their betrayer, the sleeping dragon Dumat, their taint twisting even the false god, and the whisperer awoke at last, in pain and horror, and led them to wreak havoc upon all the nations of the world, the first Blight. From Threnodi's 8. Item 77. The Fade. The study of the Fade is as old as humankind, for so long as men have dreamed, we have walked its twisting paths, sometimes catching a glimpse of the city at its heart, always as close as our own thoughts, but impossibly separated from our world. The Tevinter Imperium once spent vast fortunes of gold, lyrium, and human slaves in an effort to map the terrain of the Fade, an ultimately futile endeavor. Although portions of it belong to powerful spirits, all of the Fade is in constant flux. The Imperium succeeded in finding the disparate and ever-shifting realms of a dozen demon lords, as well as cataloging a few hundred types of spirits before they were forced to abandon the project. The relationship of dreamers to the Fade is complex. Even when entering the Fade through the use of lyrium, mortals are not able to control or affect it. The spirits who dwell there, however, can, and as the chantry teaches us, the great flaw of the spirits is that they have neither imagination nor ambition. They create what they see through their sleeping visitors, building elaborate copies of our cities, people, and events, which, like the reflections in a mirror, ultimately lack contexts or life of their own. Even the most powerful demons merely plagiarize the worst thoughts and fears of mortals, and build their realms with no other ambition than to taste life. From Tranquility and the Role of the Fade in Human Culture by First Enchanter Josephus. And lastly, in Magic and Religion, Article 90, the Tranquil. The Tranquil are the least understood but most visible members of the Circle. Every city of respectable size boasts a Circle of Magi shop, and every one of these shops is run by a Tranquil proprietor. The name is a misnomer, for they are not tranquil at all. Rather, they are like inanimate objects that speak. If a table wished to sell you an enchanted penknife, it could pass as one of these people. Their eyes are expressionless, their voice is monotone. Incomparable craftsmen they might be, but they are hardly the sort of mages to put ordinary folk at ease. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. Next is Culture and History, Article 93, Aravels. We are the Dalish, keepers of the lost lore, walkers of the lonely path. We are the last Elven. Never again shall we submit. The Oath of the Dales. Someone once told me that humans flee when they see the sails of our Aravels flying above the tops of trees. I say good. Let them flee. The humans took everything from us. Our homeland, our freedom, our immortality. What is a little fear compared to all the horrors inflicted upon us? I recite the Oath of the Dales to myself each day when I sleep and when I wake. Never again shall we submit. Never again. The Keeper says that one day the Dalish will find a home that we can call our own. But why? Why should we tie ourselves to stone constructions like the humans and the dwarves? What is wrong with the life we have now? We owe nothing to anyone. We have no master but ourselves, and we go where the Halla and the gods take us. There is nothing more wonderful than sitting on an Aravel as it flies through the forest, pulled by our Halla. We are truly free for the first time in our people's history. Why should we change this? From the Journal of Tanael, Clan Hunter. Article 94, The Dales. You will hear tales of the woman Andraste, the Shemlin name her prophet, bride of their maker, but we knew her as a war leader, one who, like us, had been a slave and dreamed of liberation. We joined her rebellion against the Imperium, and our heroes died beside her, unmourned in Tevinter bonfires. But we stayed with our so-called allies until the war ended. Our reward? A land in southern Orlais called the Dales. So we began the long walk to our new home. Halam Sharal, the end of the journey, was our capital, built out of the reach of humans. We could once again forget the incessant passage of time. Our people began the slow process of recovering the culture and traditions we had lost to slavery. But it was not to last. The Chantry first sent missionaries into the Dales, and then, when those were thrown out, Templars. We were driven from Halam Sharal, scattered. Some took refuge in the cities of the Shemlin, living in squalor, tolerated only a little better than vermin. We took a different path. We took to the wilderness, never stopping long enough to draw the notice of our Shemlin neighbors. In our self-imposed exile, we kept what remained of elven knowledge and culture alive. The end of the long walk, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Ralafaran clan of the Dalish Elves. Article 107, the Brecilian Forest. There are places in the Brecilian Forest where the veil is so thin, the difference between awake and dreaming is next to nothing. In one such place, a woodshaper was born under such unfortunate stars that his mother named him Abelas, which means sorrow. And he lived up to his name. He could keep no apprentices and lost his stock of bows in mishap after mishap, until finally he had nothing. The rest of the clan began to fear his ill luck would harm them too, and whispered among themselves of casting him out. Abelas heard them and resolved to change his luck, and so went into the forest alone to seek a suitable tree from which to make bows. At last he spied a young rowan growing beside a stream. He drew his axe, and the tree cried out in fear, begging to be spared. But Abelas said, "If I do not take your life, mine will surely end," and with 2 strokes he felled the tree. From the tree he made the finest 3 bows he had ever crafted. Pleased, Abelas returned to camp and gave his bows to the hunters at once. By nightfall, however, the camp was in an uproar. The hunters had returned with braces of hares, which, when cut open, revealed only worms and sawdust. The elder said it was a sign that the hunters had robbed some spirit of its host, for it is well known that the spirits do not go about the waking world on their own, but inhabit another creature's body. The elder worked a charm to banish the spirit back to the Fade, and the clan went to sleep hungry. The next day the hunters brought back a doe, and again the beast bled sawdust. Now the clan began to fear the spirit would starve them, and wondered what they had done to deserve it. Abelas came forward then and told of the rowan tree. The elder considered for a long time before declaring that they must replace what Abelas had taken from the spirit. So he sent the hunters to dig up a rowan sapling and bring it, living, to the camp. There the elder ordered the sapling planted and appealed to the spirit for forgiveness. There was a terrible sound then, as if the whole forest were crying out in protest. Darkness fell upon the camp, though it was just past midday, and when the darkness passed, a rowan grove, every tree bearing the frozen face of a terrified elf, stood where the camp had been. From then on, it was forbidden in every clan to cut living trees in the Brecilian Forest. The spirits know nothing of forgiveness. The Rowan Grove, a Dalish tale, from Ferelden, Folklore and History by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. One more drink of water. Article 110, the City Elves. It is hard to tell our children about those people who decided to live in the Shemlin cities. They ask, why would anyone want to be treated like that? And sometimes I do not know what to say. I do not understand it myself. They were freed, but they have returned to live in the service of their former masters. They are housed like animals in walled sections of the Shemlin cities. They do the meanest tasks and are rewarded with nothing. Why? I do not know. We tell the children that the Elven are strong, and that we are a proud people, but they hear of these city elves who choose to toil under the human's heavy hand. How do we teach them pride when they know there are others who would allow themselves to be trampled into the dust? So we tell them that these city elves are to be pitied, that they have given up on their people, given up their heritage. We tell them that some people are so used to being controlled that, when freed, they know not what to do with themselves. They are weak and afraid of the unfamiliar, afraid of our life of wandering. Above all, they are afraid even to hope that one day we may have a home of our own. Gisharel, keeper of the Ralafarin clan of the Dalish Elves. Article 112, Arlathan, Part 1. Before the ages were named or numbered, our people were glorious and eternal and never changing. Like the great oak tree, they were constant in their traditions, strong in their roots, and ever reaching for the sky. They felt no need to rush when life was endless. They worshipped their gods for months at a time. Decisions came after decades of debate, and an introduction could last for years. From time to time, our ancestors would drift into centuries-long slumber, but this was not death, for we know they wandered in the Fade in dreams. In those ages, our people called all the land Elvenan, which in the old language means place of our people, and at the center of the world stood the great city of Arlathan, a place of knowledge and debate, where the best of the ancient elves would go to trade knowledge, greet old friends, and settle disputes that had gone on for millennia. But while our ancestors were caught up in the forever cycles of ages, drifting through life at what we today would consider an intolerable pace, the world outside the lush forests and ancient trees was changing. The humans first arrived from Parvalan to the north, called Shemlin or Quicklings by the ancients. The humans were pitiful creatures whose lives blinked by in an instant. God. When they first met the elves, the humans were brash and warlike, quick to anger and quicker to fight, with no patience for the unhurried pace of elven diplomacy. But the humans brought worse things than war with them. Our ancestors proved susceptible to human diseases, and for the first time in history, elves died of natural causes. What's more, those elves who spent time bartering and negotiating with humans found themselves aging, tainted by the humans' brash and impatient lives. Many believed that the ancient gods had judged them unworthy of their long lives and cast them down among the quicklings. Our ancestors came to look upon humans as parasites, which I understand is similar to the way the humans see our people in the cities. The ancient elves immediately moved to close Elvenan off from the humans. God, I'm sorry. For fear that this quickening effect would crumble the civilization. The Fall of Arlathan, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Theirin clan of the Dalish Elves. Article 113. Arlathan, Part 2. Arlathan, Part 2. Blah, blah, blah. You ask what happened to Arlathan? Sadly, we do not know. Even those of us who keep the ancient lore have no record of what truly happened. What we have are accounts of the days before the fall, and a fable of the whims of the gods. The human world was changing even as the elves slept. Clans and tribes gave way to a powerful empire called Tevinter, which, and for what reason we do not know, moved to conquer Elvenan. When they breached the great city of Arlathan, our people, fearful of disease and the loss of immortality, chose to flee rather than fight. With magic, demons, and even dragons at their behest, the Tevinter Imperium marched easily through Arlathan, destroying homes and galleries and amphitheaters that had stood for ages. Our people were corralled as slaves, and human contact quickened in their veins, until every captured elf turned mortal. The elves called to their ancient gods, but there was no answer. As to why the gods didn't answer, our people left only a legend. They say that Fen'Harel, the dread wolf and lord of tricksters, approached the ancient gods of good and evil and proposed a truce. The gods of good would remove themselves to heaven, and the lords of evil would exile themselves to the abyss. Neither group ever again to enter the other's lands, but the gods did not know that Fen'Harel had planned to betray them, and by the time they realized the dread wolf's treachery, they were sealed in their respective realms, never again to interact with the mortal world. It is a fable, to be sure, but those elves who travel to the beyond claim that Fen'Harel still roams the world of dreams, keeping watch over the gods lest they escape from their prisons. Whatever the case, Arlathan had fallen to the very humans our people had once considered mere pests. It is said that the Tevinter Magisters used their great destructive power to force the very ground to swallow Arlathan whole, destroying eons of collected knowledge, culture, and art. The whole of elven lore left only to memory. The Fall of Arlathan, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Ralaferin clan of the Dalish Elves. Article 114. The Dalish Elves. In time, the human empires will crumble. We have seen it happen countless times. Until then, we wait. We keep to the wild borderlands, we raise Halla, and build Aravels and present a moving target to the humans around us. We try to keep hold of the old ways, to relearn what was forgotten. We call to the ancient gods, although they do not answer and have not heard us since before the fall of Arlathan, so that one day they might remember us. Elgar'nan, the eldest of the sun, and he who overthrew his father. Mithal, the protector. Ben-Harel, the dread wolf. Andril, the huntress. Valondin, the friend of the dead. Durthamin, the keeper of secrets. Ghilan'nain, the mother of Halla. June, the master of crafts. And Silaise, the hearthkeeper. We gather every 10 years for the Arlathan, to retell the ancient stories and keep them alive, for when the human kingdoms are gone, we must be ready to teach the others what it means to be elves, as told by Gisharel, keeper of the Ralaferin clan of the Dalish Elves. Article 129. King Maric Theirin. It is difficult to separate the man from the myth. The last survivor of the bloodline of King Calanhad, the Silver Knight, Maric drove the Orlesian forces from Ferelden's borders, reclaimed the throne, and freed our people from foreign tyranny. All true, and all larger than life. He was born in hiding near Cathal's crossing to the rebel queen Moira, and grew up in rebel camps, an outlaw in his own country. When the rebel queen died, Maric inherited her homeless nobles, malcontents, and displaced freeholders, and with the aid of his friend Logain MacTyr, built them into an army. After the pivotal battle of Riverdane, Maric took the throne. He married Rowan, daughter of Rendorn Gren, Earl of Redcliffe, and began the long, slow process of rebuilding everything Orlais had demolished in 70 years of occupation. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Article 149. Ostagar. Representing the furthest points of encroachment by the ancient Tevinter Imperium into the barbarian lands of the southeast, the fortress of The fortress of Ostagar was once one of the most important defensive holdings south of the Waking Sea. It stood at the edge of the Korcari Wilds, watching for any signs of invasion by the barbarians known today as the Chastened Wilders. Straddling a narrow pass in the hills, the fortress needed to be bypassed to reach the fertile lowlands to the north, and proved to be exceedingly difficult for the Wilders to attack because of its naturally defensible position. Like most imperial holdings in the south, Ostagar was abandoned after Tevinter's collapse during the First Blight. It was successfully sacked by the Chastened Wilders, and then, as the Chastened threat dwindled following the creation of the modern Ferelden nation, fell to ruin completely. It has remained unmanned for 4 centuries, though most of the walls still stand, as does the tall Tower of Ishal, named after the great Archon that ordered its construction. Ostagar remains a testament to the magical power of the Imperium that created it. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Article 158. The Grey Wardens. The First Blight had already raged for 90 years. The world was in chaos. A god had risen, twisted and corrupted. The remaining gods of Tevinter were silent, withdrawn. What writing we have recovered from those times is filled with despair, for everyone believed, from the greatest archons to the lowliest slaves, that the world was coming to an end. At Weishaupt Fortress, in the desolate Anderfels, a meeting transpired. Soldiers of the Imperium, seasoned veterans who had known nothing their entire lifetimes except hopeless war, came together. When they had left Weishaupt, they had renounced their oaths to the Imperium. They were soldiers no longer. They were the Grey Wardens. The Wardens began an aggressive campaign against the Blight, striking back against the Darkspawn, reclaiming the lands given up for lost. The Blight was far from over, but their victories brought notice, and soon they received aid from every nation in Thedas. They grew in number as well as reputation. Finally, in the year 992 of the Tevinter Imperium, upon the Silent Plains they met the Archdemon Dumat in battle. A third of all the armies of northern Thedas were lost to the fighting, but Dumat fell and the Darkspawn fled back underground. Even that was not the end. The Imperium once revered 7 gods: Dumat, Zazakel, Toth, Andoril, Razakael, Lusican, and Earthmail, and Earthemiel. 4 have risen as archdemons. The Grey Wardens have kept watch through the ages, well aware that peace is fleeting, and that their war continues until the last of the dragon gods is gone. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. The Korcari Wilds. Article 159. The Korcari Wilds. It is said that in the midst of the Black Age, when werewolves stalked the lands of Ferelden in numbers that kept every farmholder indoors and a hound on every doorstep, a powerful Arl of the Alamari peoples stood and declared that he would put an end to the threat. His Arling stood on the border of the dark forest on the southern border of the Ferelden Valley, and he claimed that the werewolves used the forest to launch their midnight assaults on humanity. For 20 years, this Arl led an army of warriors and hounds deep into the forest. In his hunt for the werewolves, he slew not only every wolf he came upon, but also every member of the chastened wilder folk. Any one of them, he said, could harbor a demon inside and thus be a werewolf in disguise. For 20 years, the forest rang with screams, and the rivers ran red. The tales say that an old chastened woman found her sons all dead at the Arl's blades. She pulled one of those very blades from one son's heart and plunged it into her own chest, cursing the Arl's name as she did so. Where her blood touched the ground, a mist began to rise. It spread and spread until it was everywhere in the forest. The Arl's army became lost, and it is said that they died there. Others say that they wander still. The ruins of his Arling stand to this day, filled with the ghosts of women waiting eternally for their husbands to return. The forest of the legend is, of course, the Korcari Wilds. There are as many legends about the great southern forest as there are shadows, or so the saying goes. The chastened wilder folk have made their home there since mankind first came to these lands, and the wildlands spread as far to the south as anyone has ventured. Beyond the mists are vast tracts of snow, white-capped mountains, and entire fields of ice. It is a land too cold for mankind to survive, yet the chastened eke out an existence there, even there, and they tell of horrors beyond the wilds that the lowland folk could not begin to comprehend. To most, Ferelden simply ends with the Korcari Wilds. There is nothing beyond the wilds in a land. There is nothing beyond. The wilds is a land of great trees, wet marshes, and dangerous monsters. What more need be said? From Land of the Wilders, by Mother Alice, Chantry Scholar, 918, Dragons. Dragon. Bleh. Characters. Article 162. Alistair. You know, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together. Alistair was a novice Templar when Duncan recruited him into the Grey Wardens, or rescued him, as Alistair would say. Article 165, King Caelan Theirin. I'd hoped for a war like in the tales, a king riding with the fabled Grey Wardens against a tainted god. Son of the legendary King Maric Theirin, Kaelin was the first Ferelden king born into a land free from foreign rule in two generations. Since his father's death, he held the throne alongside his queen. He held the throne alongside his queen Anora. God dang it. Article 180, Logain Mactyr. It takes more than legends to win a battle. Logain was born a farmer during a time when his country was under foreign occupation. When he was still a boy, he joined the resistance, where his considerable tactical genius quickly became apparent. He became close friends with Prince Maric, the last true heir to the Ferelden throne, and together they led the rebels to drive out the forces of the Orlesian Empire. Maric raised his friend to nobility, and Logain is now more of a symbol than a man. He represents the Ferelden ideals of hard work and independence. Article 187, Win. I will not lie motionless in a bed with coverlets up to my chin, waiting for death to claim me. Wyn's talent became apparent early on, particularly her skill at healing magic. She was well liked by all her mentors and was recognized as an exceptionally gifted student. Even the Templars who watched her could not deny that she represented the best the Circle had to offer. She was an intelligent young woman who possessed a quiet confidence and maturity beyond her years. She spent many years mentoring apprentices within the Circle, and her peers thought so highly of her that she was asked to be First Enchanter Irving's successor, but she refused, saying that she had no desire to work in the upper echelons. When word reached the tower of King Kaelin's call to arms, Wyn volunteered to go to Ostagar. And lastly, in Books and Songs, Article 218, rather. There's the dyslexia. 218. The Legend of Lithias Dwarfson. At an early age, Lithias was smaller than most children of the Alamari. At the age of 12, Lithias saved Tutha, the son of the tribal chief, from his own dog. The dog had gone rabid, and when it attacked Tutha, Lithias slew it with his bare hands. Tutha's father, Maben, I'm going to call him Maben, was impressed with Lithias' strength and bravery, and so took him in as his own son. When Lithias grew to manhood, he became known for his charisma and bravery. While shorter than his fellow warriors, Lithias was stronger and doughtier than any warrior in the tribe. When Lithias was still a young man, Maben sent him to the dwarven city of Orzammar to negotiate an alliance. Maben's tribe had come into conflict with the other Alamari, and he needed as much help as he could get. Lithias was unable to convince the dwarven king to aid his tribe, but fell in love with the king's daughter, Skaya. Lithias and Skaya fled the dwarven realm and returned to his tribe. Skaya taught Lithias the art of fighting without pain, the berserker state known as the Battle Wrath, and with it, Lithias became a renowned warrior. Lithias led his tribe to many victories until eventually he replaced his foster father as chief of his own tribe, as chief of the tribe. His tribe. Fuck. This peace would not last. During a feast between the tribal leaders of the Alamari and the Avar, the beautiful and powerful Avar chieftain, Morriganen, became enamored with Lithias and seduced him. Skaya learned of the tryst and fled the village to return to Orzammar. When Lithias rebuffed Morriganen's offer of marriage, she left in great anger, and from that moment on, there was war between the two tribes. For 15 years, the Alamari and the Avar fought. During the Battle of Red Falls, a powerful young warrior from Morriganen's tribe challenged Lithias to battle. Lithias was injured grievously, but slew the boy. Morriganen revealed that the boy was Lithias' son, conceived 15 years ago during their tryst. She cursed Lithias as the murderer of his own kin, and the Battle of Red Falls turned against Lithias. Morriganen defeated Luthias in battle after battle until the Alamari were driven into the foothills of the Frostback Mountain. There Luthias made a last stand, and the night before Luthias's final battle, Skaya came to him and offered him a dwarven suit of chain in exchange for a night together. Luthias agreed and wore the armor, and the following morning in battle. The battle was fierce and bloody, and Luthias met Morriganen in personal combat. In the end, Luthias slew the warrior woman, but not before receiving a mortal wound to his heart. The chain inexplicably unable to block her final blow. Luthias died, and after the battle was done, a party of dwarven warriors came down from the mountains and took the body of Luthias back to Orzammar. From The Legend of Luthias Dwarf Son, author unrecorded, circa 350 Ancient. Whew. That's all for now. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye!